Joining me from the Mount Washington Observatory is Outreach Coordinator Will Broussard. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We've got a lot of neat toys here that we're going to get to play with, or I'm going to get to play with in just a little bit. I guess that's the nature of your job. Tell us, for someone who's not initiated with the Mount Washington Observatory, tell us a little bit about the observatory. Who are you? What do you do?
Sure. Well, the Mount Washington Observatory is a non-profit, private, member-supported organization. Kind of exists in a number of capacities. We have a weather station on the summit of Mount Washington, where we've been taking weather data for 80 years. And we also have a weather museum, Weather Discovery Center, right here in North Conway. And where that's where the public can come and kind of interact with our weather observers through conference technology that we have here in the Valley. We also have a 10-minute weather movie. They can learn all about the history of Mount Washington Observatory as well.
It's a lot of fun. I love the theater experience with the observers. I think the first one is at 11?
Yes, there's one at 11:15 and another at 2:15.
You go into the theater, and it's like you're watching a movie, except all of a sudden the movie talks back to you, and it kind of catches you off guard the first time you do it, because you're not expecting it.
Certainly.
But it's a lot of fun. You can ask questions, everything you always wanted to know about life on the summit of Mount Washington. And now you mentioned that you do outreach, right. And so for local schools in the greater Mount Washington Valley area, what does that mean? How does that work?
So that means that we will travel around and we will give programs about Mount Washington to local schools or local organizations that want to know more about what we're doing. Typically when I go out, we'll bring some of these weather props with us because folks might not get a chance to go up to the summit of Mount Washington. We bring these props to help them kind of experience what it's like up there. We also bring kind of PowerPoint presentations, give them some ideas, some images of what it's actually like, because there's really nothing like having a picture of something like our weather observer up there covered in rime ice. You know, some folks just haven't been up there in the winter, let alone the summertime.
Right.
So
this is the closest thing to bringing the summit into the classroom.
Exactly.
Essentially. How are kids and teachers receiving this? Are they enjoying it?
Yes, this especially when it comes to kind of the interactive props and gizmos and gadgets that we bring in. That's something that the kids really like. And for teachers, it's great because we have devices that allow us to not only talk about the weather in Mount Washington, but kind of convey some scientific concepts that go along with why Mount Washington is so dangerous.
Right. So you've got kind of the best of both worlds. You've got Mount Washington, which is this fascinating icon that kind of stimulates the curiosity and the sense of adventure and the longing to discover, and then you kind of bring this educational component with it, so kids actually are getting something out of it.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have this in our backyard.
Yep, absolutely. So how do people, let's say there's a teacher watching who wants to bring you into her classroom, how does she go about doing it?
Well, they should definitely begin by going to mountwashington.org. So that's Mount Washington, all spelled out, .org/education. So they can go to that website, they can navigate to our education page and go to the outreach programs, and they can definitely check that out, and they can contact me directly or Michelle Cruz in the education department.
All right, we're looking at the website right now. And then for those, maybe we have someone from New York or California visiting us. They're saying, I would love this, but obviously we're out of New England.
Right.
You actually have something for them.
We have something for them too. So as you said, so locally we have educational outreach programs, but farther away we have distance learning programs. And it's actually very similar to the experience you get when you come to the Weather Discovery Center, either 11 or 2, and you have this direct face-to-face contact with the observers. Through our distance learning program, we can have schools essentially, theoretically, anywhere in the world having this experience where they can talk to an observer on top of Mount Washington. So I would begin the program talking about the weather at the summit, but then ultimately we would bring the students to the summit obviously through their computer screen, where they would get to interact with and talk to these observers.
That's fascinating. And how has this been received?
This has been received very well. It's only about 3 years old, but it's really taking off.
All right. Now, so you've got in the classroom, if you're fairly local, you've got the distance learning programs. You've also, as you mentioned, have the Weather Discovery Center right here in town, where people can go. And I've seen, these look like miniature versions of some of the things that we see there. And do you bring some of these to the classroom as well? Yeah,
so these are kind of outreach props that I would bring to a classroom. This is the air cannon. We have a very...
May I?
Yes, you may. It's a smaller replica of what we have at the Weather Discovery Center.
The one at the Weather Discovery Center has a bullseye.
Yes,
if this one had a bullseye, I would nail it. But since it doesn't, there's no way to judge my accuracy. So, of course, I'm creating air pressure.
Exactly. And what's neat is you could even be on the other side of the room and play with that, and hopefully it would work out.
And which kid doesn't want to do this, all day and get credit for it as part of a science class?
Exactly. So as fun as that is, it's actually demonstrating some really important meteorological, physical concepts.
Yes.
So,
like in this instance, those are the summit of Mount Washington, and this is the northeast wind about to blow the observers off the summit.
Exactly.
Kind of exactly. More or less, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, because you had mentioned our distance learning and our educational outreach, we also have summit adventures. And in the summertime, we have summit adventures. In the wintertime, we have edu-trips. So this is really fun for the public, because it's the only way you can really get up to the summit of Mount Washington in the wintertime.
And so just the general public can sign up for this and spend some time on the summit?
Exactly, and we take our snowcat up in the wintertime, and it's a fun experience. It's really unique to get up there. I have yet to do it, but I'm looking forward to it.
I have spent some time up there in the winter. You've got to do it, because there's nothing like the summit of Mount Washington. This is a place where you could travel halfway across the globe to get the same feeling of wow, and an exotic location that I've never experienced before. My body doesn't even know what to do. Right. Or you could just travel up the road here in Pinkham Notch and go to the summit of Mount Washington, and it's the same feeling in wintertime. You feel like you're in such an exotic and just alien, Kelly gave me that word, nice, place in the winter. It's fascinating.
Well, that's why a lot of folks who are training for summiting Mount Everest typically come up Mount Washington, because the elements are so similar.
Absolutely. You brought a hairdryer. Did you know who your host was today? So the purpose of this, and can we make some room here? Move it around.
So we've already shown our mini air cannon,
which I dominated. I was so good at it.
You were awesome.
Was I the best host ever at that?
Yes.
Thank you.
First host ever at that. So this is what we call the Bernoulli principal machine, and this is basically what happens is we take this into a classroom, and it's all interactive. So you want the kids to be as engaged as possible and use it.
My mind is childlike. So this is a good demonstration right
Perfect. So then I can give this to you, and basically what you want to do is these softballs can't move forward or back. They can just move side to side. And basically what's going to happen is or if you were the outreach coordinator, you'd go in a classroom with this, and you'd have this, and you'd say, so if I turn this on right here, what do you think the softballs are going to do?
I think they're going to split apart.
They're going to split apart, and most folks might say that. So I want you to test your hypothesis.
Watch me split these softballs apart using my mighty air dryer.
They go right up.
I don't know how to make this thing work, unfortunately.
Yeah, there you go.
They're not splitting apart.
They're not splitting apart.
They're doing the opposite.
They're doing the opposite.
I was the worst host ever at this.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay to make a prediction and have it not work out. That's how science works.
You could probably explain to me why that's doing that, right?
Exactly. So, all right. So in this situation, when you put the hairdryer up against these balls, there you go. The air, not unlike the summit of Mount Washington, speeds up between these two softballs. And where they speed up, they create an area of low pressure, and and a vacuum, and that forces these two softballs together. And so this is especially important because at the summit of Mount Washington, you have air moving up. Well, it could move up from the coast during maybe a nor'easter. It can move from the Midwest. And when it hits these mountains, it rises. It's forced up over the mountains, the White Mountains, and the summit in particular, Mount Washington. And so it's forced up between the summit and the bottom of the troposphere, basically the part of our Earth that has its weather. And when it's forced in between, it's forced through a narrow space, and it speeds up. And that's why we call this the Bernoulli principle. That's this idea that fluids speed up through constricted spaces.
And you actually, there's a very good visual representation of this at the Weather Discovery Center too. You have another interactive thing with magnets that you
that is one of my favorite exhibits.
Well, I think we're just about running out of time, so we probably have to wrap things up. But if people want more information on either getting you in their classroom, doing one of the distance learning, or more information about getting up on the summit of Mount Washington during the winter, what should they do? They should
definitely begin by going to mountwashington.org, as I said earlier, and basically contacting me directly, or Michelle Cruz in the education department as well. But they can begin by going to our Mount Washington Observatory. See it up on your screen.
Will Broussard, Mount Washington Observatory Outreach Coordinator. If you think that you can split those balls with the hairdryer, do a better job than I did, contact this man. He'll put you up to the challenge. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.